Middlekauff! Heavy, hey!
What? Coughlin's not the coach here.
I thought about Tom today because since they fired him and he refused to take John Mara's hand as he left the podium, they've had 3 coaches in 6 years and it has not gone well. Like, I don't want to say they were wrong in firing him because it felt like time, but they have not replaced him.
All right, so I have a buddy who works in private air travel, like he books flights for people, and there are plane shortages, but you're telling me the New York Giants couldn't get this man on a private plane? What was your line? John Mara, let's put him with the pores.
Yeah, well, because the way John Mara clearly, I didn't watch the press conference, but I can imagine like he's up there at the dais with the guy. His name reads kind of funny, but I guess it's just Shane, Joe Shane. And
okay.
he just said that that the only ticket they could get from Buffalo was like the far back middle seat, and then he's like, he didn't even complain. It's like, John, if you're who the fuck would mention that trying to interview for your job? But it shows you the way these guys think. Like I said, that's John Mara thinks like that's where all the poor people sit, right? I mean, John Mara thinks everyone on the flight is where the poor people sit, but like really that seat is like you couldn't. John Mara in his lowest would have walked before he sat in that seat. And Joe had a great line, right? He's like, fuck, they could have told me to sit on the wing. I'm interviewing for the New York Giants, right?
That was a great line. But you're right. It's one of those things that like a GM would be like, we didn't even have any bottles of water for him at the combine interview, but he didn't complain. Mentally tough. It's like, who's going to walk in and be like, hey, what the fuck, guys? I mean, Josh McDaniels might complain about that.
You would say if someone complained, it would be a pretty big red flag. Maybe if it's like Jim Harbaugh, right? I mean, just like you're flying in Sean Payton. And I do think those guys would they were doing interviews. Do you think it's crazy to not set the private plane just when you're interviewing general manager candidates, or should you send them all for the general manager candidates?
Now that you mention, it's a good point. Like how many planes do you have? Like surely one is flying in while another one's leaving. It's probably hard to do that, right? Well, it feels like I know there's a lot of jobs open. Like 30% of the league has an open head coaching job, not even to mention GM jobs. There are a lot of people getting interviewed right now. A ton of people. I feel like we know about more people getting interviewed than ever before. But again, there's just a ton of jobs open, so it could be as simple as that.
You know why it is? Because I just didn't fathom, like, I didn't even know what having an agent was like when I was in the NFL, or people who would, beside like a general manager. So many executives now have agents that the only way, and I was talking to someone, they're like, really the only way to get a true raise in the NFL, like get $100,000 bump, right? Not just your typical inflation, $7,000 from $100,000 to $107,000 the next year. Is be like, these guys might steal you. And they interviewed for the GM, but the guy they hired, they might want to bring this guy over as a position bigger than the one he has. So all these agents are kind of doing a little Jimmy Sexton with executives. There aren't 18 general manager jobs open. Like you said, I've seen some of these names. It's like, what? And I think part of it, too, is like John Spytek, who we missed each other in Philly, but I wouldn't say I'd gotten to know him, but I mean, we would know each other if we saw him, and people know him really well. People think really highly of him. He's Jason Light's right-hand guy in Tampa. Well, maybe Jason Light goes like, hey, we should take care of these guys to the owner. And the owner goes, we're fucking paying all these coaches. We're paying you. Like, why do I need to give him, I'm paying him $280,000. Why do I need to give him $5 million? So you go, so maybe even Jason sometimes helps them, right? Go get an interview with the Raiders. And then you start like, we're going to lose this guy. We're going to lose Brady and my guy Spytek. And then it just, maybe you get your guy $100,000 raise. But people have told me, and looking back, like, in radio, we kind of got raises, because we're good. But in as a scout, like I only got a $5,000 raise. I had no one even knew who I was. But right. I knew some people that got these big raises because, like, we can't lose them to the Colts, Kind of like a player.
I remember hearing a story about a buddy of mine, kind of the same deal. this was a guy, I've heard the story years ago, and one of the guy who told me the story listens to the show, but there was a job open. It was about a guy who's an NBA play-by-play guy.
Marv Albert?
Not Marv Albert. And I think he still is, the other side of the country. And his team wouldn't give him a raise. And he applies for this job on the West Coast, a college job. And he calls up the second in command there and says, look, man, actually it was the reverse. The second in command called him. He's like, hey, why are you applying for this job? And the guy goes, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to get a raise from my NBA team and they will not give me a raise. And so I don't want your job, but we're friends. And if you would do me the favor of calling my boss and asking for permission to talk to me, that would help me out here in my NBA job. And the guy said, you know what? Because you were straight up with me, I will be happy to do that for you. He's like, because what he told me, this is the guy in administration told me this. He's like, people do that all the time. They'll apply for jobs. You'll get down the road with them. And then they'll just, I'm good. I'm not taking it. Cause they just wanted to use you for leverage.
Come in on a second interview. I'm fine. Man.
Yeah. They'll come in, they'll get down to like the last 3 and then the job will get offered and they'll turn the job down. Like they'll lead them along enough to get a raise.
Kind of a scummy move doing that.
So he said,
what? Business is business.
No. And he said, I've had people do that, but because this guy was upfront with me, I was happy to do him this favor. So it's kind of there's another, I don't think it's uncommon in business.
Guy get a raise.
Guy got a raise. He's still there.
You know, I do go back and forth. If you're the owner or something, you have someone working for you, you want to take care of your people, but you do get to a point maybe in your mind, like, I'm taking care of you. Like, I think what I'm paying you, let's say that announcer, let's just pick a number, was making $250. He's like, fuck, I think I should get $4. But you're like, why do I just have to give you $4? I could get someone to do this who I think would be equally as good for $150. But if I like you, I don't know. I understand both sides of it, but it shows you they value you the moment that they don't want to lose you. Isn't that part of life? Like, give us a reason.
Yeah.
You know, I think, sometimes something I've learned, when I had no leverage, no one gives a shit. When you got a little juice, you make a little more cash.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's really that.
It's the law. It is the law.
I would say it's human nature, right? When you're dating someone, the moment you're like, well, she can go somewhere else, you get a little, I don't want to lose her. Or maybe you do. You're like,
well, I don't want to date her, but I don't want somebody else to.
Like Tony Gonzalez. Do you know that Jeff Bezos' girlfriend is Tony Gonzalez's ex-girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez?
I've done a deep dive in the past, so maybe I knew that and forgot, but that's good intel.
Because they were just all together on New Year's Eve, and I remember I put something out on my Instagram story, like, what? And a bunch of people DM me. It's like, oh, yeah, it's his ex-girlfriend. I'm like, well, his ex-girlfriend, then he just becomes friends with Bezos? Like, or maybe they were already friends. Maybe it's just swingers.
Worth biting the bullet on that one.
Yeah, different rules for, Will Smith always played by different rules.
I'm just saying it's worth biting the bullet. Like, I don't really want to hang out with her and Bezos, but, it's Bezos. I could go to the moon.
Yeah.
It is kind of awkward, but, the upside.
Maybe he'll pay me $7 million to be on his Amazon Studio show Thursday for 30 minutes.
7, Jeff. Why are you lowballing me? Yeah. Hey, what were we going to start with? That was a good conversation. Oh, hey, this is YouTube only, which a couple of things. That means this is not a podcast, although sometimes it turns out to be good when we make it a podcast, but not often. Probably not going to be the case today. We're planning to bring just 80% to this live stream today, not the A+ podcast effort. That's not true. We always bring an A+ effort. But that's what this is. So if you like it, if you're here, we would love for you to hit that like button on the YouTube. Check out our podcast, which is down in the description below, and subscribe to this channel.
Did you see the story that the Michigan defensive coordinator went back to the Ravens? And a lot of people were making a big deal of it, including myself. I just quoted the tweet and wrote Harbaugh and Fangio coming in. If we take a step back, take the funny and emotion and the Harbaugh connection to the Raiders out of it, being the defensive coordinator of the Ravens is a better job than being the defensive coordinator of the Michigan Wolverines independently. Now, obviously, they're connected because of the brothers. He also probably got – do you know what the defensive coordinator – like, it's a big deal when a guy – and it only really happens in, like, the SEC and some Big Ten schools when it's like, this OC's making 1-4, and that's a shitload, right? The average DC in the NFL makes like 2.2. And so this guy was already worked. He was, I think, Wink Martindale's linebacker coach. So he's going back to a place that they already know him. It's not
What happened with Wink, by the way?
Well, someone told me that might know that he just thought it was kind of ego and money. I think Wink had one more year in his contract, making a shitload of money now, probably, let's say $3 million, one of the highest paid defensive coordinators. Well, I got 1 year left. A bunch of teams are sniffing around. Will you give me a 3-year extension at a 3-year, $10 million extension? And then Harbaugh kind of balks, and then they just say, okay, let me out of my contract. Let me become a free agent.
Well, Harbaugh just got an extension, didn't he? Is that done?
John Harbaugh?
I think John Harbaugh just got a new contract.
Well,
I saw it on the bottom line last night while I was watching college basketball.
I wonder how much that bad boy is going to be worth. They don't announce those quite like they do in the college football, huh? It's like
nearing contract extension. Report.
John Harbaugh just got $80 million for 5 years. In college, It would be immediately like, John Harbaugh, $77 million.
Because in college, it's partly a recruiting thing, right? In the NFL, it's like they don't want people to know how much they're paying some of these head coaches.
No.
Which is funny. Here's the one thing I will say where you're right. I mean, why wouldn't you take this?
He might have doubled his money.
Yeah, 100%. But I was talking to a guy, Brandon Marcello, today from 24/7 Sports, and he's a college football writer. And I was asking him about Harbaugh, and he said that he talked to someone who knows Jim very, very, very well. And this guy talks to Jim regularly, and he said nobody knows what Jim's going to do. Like, his thought was Jim has not made up his mind yet. So partly, if you're this guy, again,
has he been offered the job, you think?
I mean, I wonder if he knows he's going to be offered the job, but has to wait for the Raiders to go through all of this.
Mark's only interviewing 77 people, so
everybody,
which I think is a healthy thing for Mark.
That's the thing. The guy that got the Giants job was in a middle seat between 7 other Raiders interviews. Everyone's on the same plane. But to your point, obviously you would take this job, the Ravens job, over the Michigan job. But if you're a coach on that staff, Mario Cristobal has not hired an offensive or defensive coordinator yet.
He hasn't hired a defensive coordinator either?
Hasn't hired either one.
So he got rid of the turnover chain without getting a coordinator? Well, could he be waiting for the playoffs to end and hire some of these position coaches?
I mean, I wonder if guys are, there's just a lot of dominoes still. If Harbaugh leaves, and then what happens in college? Those are a bunch of dominoes if Michigan opens up, right?
What's Mario's rush, really? There's no practice.
I mean, the rush would be, I guess, does he have a quarterback?
That's a good question. I don't watch
the rush would be
football.
like like trying to land a quarterback. Guy wants to know who he's going to play for. If you want Jackson Dart or Caleb Williams,
you don't think Mario's just cool with winning like 4 games next year?
No. But
I do like that he got rid of the turnover chain. That's to me kind of a high level move. Like, we're fucking getting rid of this turnover chain. So stupid.
Yeah.
In his day, we just fucking partied on the side when we were kicking the shit out of people. The turnover chain. When you suck, let's face it, I don't want to say they got made fun of, but that was kind of like their defining thing the last several years of their low point. Like this turnover chain. It's kind of dumb, I thought.
Yeah. So I still think Harbaugh's coming to the Raiders, but I also think it's very possible that Jim doesn't know. Or at least has not, because it is if you're his alma mater, like it's not anybody that Jim is quote unquote stringing along. It's Michigan.
Yeah, like it wouldn't shock me if it gets announced like Jim Harbaugh signed a 5-year, $50 million extension or something. Like that, I would not be stunned at all, or whatever the number is, like 5 years, 45. Just whatever the going rate is.
Well, he's either signing an extension or signing with the Raiders. What do you mean? You talking about the number, or just that he would go back to Michigan?
Yeah, they're like Bruce Feldman announced that he signed an extension with Michigan for the next, 2 years, 5 years, so like a total of 7 years. You'd be like, oh yeah, I could. He was torn. I'm shocked how much he likes it. Like, you could tell. I know it was tough. He had some tough losses at Ohio State. But I feel like when you watch him, like he takes a lot of pride in being the head coach of Michigan. Like he's liked it more than I imagined he would. Like, I thought he would be a little bit more of a mercenary. Obviously, he played there, but it feels like he kind of came into his own just the last several years of just being the coach of Michigan.
I know.
Takes a lot of pride in being at, like, recruiting visits with the kids. And I think maybe he's just, like, no different than Nick or any coach. He just embraces where he's at, and he just goes all in. That's just the way he is. I do think would it be a little bit of a transition back? I mean, he's been away now 7 years.
He'd still have to find who's going to be his offensive coordinator.
That's the one problem. So people were arguing on my Twitter timeline today about like Jim and Kyle, and it's like, well, if you had to choose, you choose Kyle. Kyle can call the plays. Jim doesn't call the plays. Jim is dependent on both. Jim's his brother, basically his brother. He just happened to play in the NFL at quarterback.
Yeah. Also, this was his 4th year, 5th.
Jim
so Kyle's already been. Yeah, but Kyle's already been here longer. Here, quote unquote, here. There you go. There's the quarterback from Miami, Tyler Van Dyke, sleeper for Heisman. Says Nate.
Jim did get fired.
Jim was difficult.
Yeah. Shanahan's were difficult in Washington.
So, there you go. We got some comments. We wanted to get back to the topic of tickets because we did a video about it the other day. We talked about it on the podcast. We got a lot of YouTube comments about Niners Rams tickets.
Did you see Sam Farmer's tweet today?
No. What did Sam Farmer say?
That the average price is already up to like $1,100. The average price of a ticket is $1,100.
Wow.
Which again keeps trending positively for the Niners. A bad sign for the Rams. And all these reports are coming out that it's trending more and more poorly for the Rams.
That the cost is going up, and that's a reflection that
yes,
A, tickets are being sold, and B, that they're being bought by 49ers fans.
Yeah.
That is bad. That is bad. And I'm telling you, man, there was a level of extra that they're going to have because they're uninvited. They were disinvited from the party, and now it feels like they're kind of crashing the party. Like, I don't know, you were there for the last meeting.
It felt to me less like disinvited and more like, fuck, you guys are not allowed in.
Yeah,
so
however you want to phrase it.
Fuck, you will show up.
But when you were there, it was like a lot of Niner fans were at that Niner Ram game, but nobody told them they weren't allowed to be there. So they were just happy to be there. Now it feels like, you tried to kick us out and
we'll pay double.
We're back.
We'll pay double.
Like in old school where they do all the stuff to get their charter back so they can get their house back and have the fraternity on campus after Dean, whatever they call him, tries to him out. Remember?
Yep.
So here are some cheese. That's the part I always remember. All right. Here are a few comments. Let's see if you can read these. This is from Juan. This was one of the comments. It's kind of tough on the YouTubes, but I'll read it to you. These guys are acting like we could pick the seats. When I bought my tickets, I was number 2,000 in the queue. And that was right after the Rams won. I couldn't choose my seat because they were sold as soon as I tried to process it. I just had to pick whatever was open. Dan says, I've been a Rams fan since they were in LA in the 70s. Went to the game 2 weeks ago, and in my section, we were outnumbered 5-1. It was nuts. NY Niners 718. I don't think it's going to matter. I think a large part of the LA population are natural Niners fans. And then Sam at the bottom says the Rams are behind the Raiders, Cowboys, and Steelers here in LA. It's not even close when it comes to Niner fans. We've been here for too long. San Bernardino is Niners country.
Remember Jim Mora took UCLA out there to practice, to training camp?
Even in the 80s and 90s, there were more Niner fans in Anaheim for the Rams and Niners games.
Isn't it kind of weird that the Rams, I didn't know this was a little before my time, the Rams played in Anaheim?
I did not know that.
Did you realize that? Like, that's been a talk of like, all these games in Anaheim. Like, so it's like Mike Trout and the Anaheim Rams, basically. Kind of
or like where they tried to build that Raiders stadium. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, that almost did not even get close.
Derek says, I'm a Niner fan since 1980. I live in Memphis. I started watching them because they drafted Montana, and I watched him play in college with my grandpa. The first time I sat and watched the entire game from start to finish was the catch. I was a month from my 11th birthday. And AJ, I live an hour from LA, born and raised in the Bay, Niner fan my whole life. I've lived in 11 states due to being in the military. There have been Niner fans everywhere I've been, but more in Southern California than I've seen anywhere else. So there is some perspective.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for them. It's not going to be good for them at all. Yeah, if you told me right now it's 65-25, does that math add up? Yeah, 65-25. I don't think it's inconceivable. That feels like on the high end. But to me, like 58, 42, I could see. I don't, we talked about it yesterday on the podcast. He has to implement and work on a little bit of the silent count, right? This week.
Yep.
He doesn't have a choice.
No. And he's going to hate doing it, but he's got to do it.
Yeah.
65-35. 65-25.
65.
70 plus 30
plus 20 is 80. That'd be 90. Yeah. Okay, you're right. Just state school guy here. Cal Poly, Fresno State. We're not. Quessy, is that his name?
Quessy. Yeah.
I text Bobby Wigington today. He hasn't got back to me because he worked at Credit Suisse, and that's where this guy worked at Credit Suisse. But I don't know if this guy might have worked in New York. Did he work in San Francisco? I'm not sure. I just said, hey, have you ever worked with this guy? I'm just interested to be like, I was hoping he'd be like, oh, yeah, we did a couple deals.
Oh, okay.
Fucking blew me away. But I haven't got a text back.
We'll get to Quessy. According to StubHub, this is your thing. Get-in price to the NFC Championship game, $5.90. The average ticket price, $18.88. Third best-selling NFL playoff game in the history of the site. So the get-in price, cheapest ticket, $5.90. Average. But again, this could also change by, Sunday, right? As we talked about in the last podcast. It could go down. It could go up.
Could go down. Could go up, yeah. It does feel this game probably a little more likely to go up. But again, that's not really based on, it's not like I'm a constant ticket buyer. And I would say you'd probably argue, too, that the overwhelming majority of games wouldn't be equal to a championship game in football, just given that it's a one-off, right?
Yeah, and the geography of it, right? If it was, Niners Bucks, it's just a little harder to get there.
I would say Lakers Warriors, if they played in like a conference finals, would be a pretty expensive ticket, don't you think? For all 5, 6, 7 games or whatever.
Yes,
but it's also different, right? Because you're like, well, I can just go to game 2, I can go to game 3. You have options, even though they'd all be high.
Less seats.
That's part of it too. Supply demand. That is a big factor. I mean, I think there's eyeballing it. 78,000. Did we talk about Joe Burrow, the SEC comment?
I don't think we did.
And Lawrence Tynes, I think we talked.
You and I talked about it. Did we do it on the show or on the stream? I don't think we. I think we just.
Yeah, and then Lawrence Tynes was like, "You better be careful about that. This is a different animal."
Yeah, he said Arrowhead's the loudest stadium.
I've seen a bunch of people, like former athletes, is like, "It's true, goddammit, there are more people there." And then some people be like, "Well, yeah, there's more people in their stadiums." It's like, well, because there's more demand. There's a reason for it. Like, is there a reason that the NFL doesn't build 100,000 person stadiums? Is it because they couldn't fill them? Would you say that is that a fair argument? It's why LSU or Michigan can have 100,000 because they know they can fill them. Where if Levi's had 110,000 people, would they fill it?
The footprint would have to be bigger. It drives the ticket cost down, right? You have more dates to fill than a college stadium has, say, 6 versus an NFL stadium, which is 8 or 9 plus preseason. No preseason in college. You actually get more home games. It's not 50-50, right? If you're at a big program. If you're Alabama, because your non-conference games, you don't play road games.
No.
So it's at least 3. But it's Incarnate Word or William and Mary, and they don't fill. Here's a newsflash: you don't fill the stadium for those games. They don't fill the stadium for those games.
Wasn't that why Alabama even tends to play like a Fresno State or Colorado State? So at least it's like kind of worth it to come. You don't think Alabama fills stadium for Colorado State?
I know they don't. For like Howard or whoever they play.
Same thing. Ohio State, Michigan when they do that shit.
Why
would you schedule that game then?
Because it's just an easy home win. You still make money on the home game, and it's a guaranteed win. Coach wants to play it.
And you do have to pay that team to come, too.
Yeah, you do. But, I mean, you're still going to get, that's the beauty. You don't fill 110, but you got 80. Well, here's the thing. They already bought the tickets.
That's true.
The season tickets are paid for.
Well, you'd say worst case scenario then is when you play Appalachian State at home and you cut them $1 million check and then they beat you?
Absolutely the worst case scenario.
As they're partying, it's like, here's your check.
We just paid them to kick our ass.
Yeah, the direct deposit just went through.
Yeah. You've been to Arrowhead for a game, right?
Yeah.
How did that compare to every other stadium you've been to in terms of
the team?
noise?
When I was there, their teams weren't, nearly as good. I can't imagine. You could feel it on television. I would say them in Buffalo feel like the loudest. I'd say Seattle had some moments earlier in Russell's career that place felt pretty nuts, which we've both been there. Feels like a little smaller there, doesn't it? Seattle? Not small, but it's not like 80,000. Feels like 60 would be my guess.
Yeah.
65, 62. But it's on you. It's loud. Like, how many people you think are at Husky Stadium? Probably the same.
55?
Yeah.
Says 72 at Lumen Field, where the Seahawks play.
Feels smaller than that.
Kroenke spent $4 billion on the Niners' home LA Stadium.
You're lowballing him. He spent 6.
Yeah, he had a rainstorm, remember?
Yeah, he would have 4. You know what's funny is like every billion. I was telling someone this the other day, because like, how much do you spend again? Like 3. I'm like, no, 6. Well, every billion is 10 100 millions. So like when you kind of put it into context, how much like, oh, it's just an extra billion. Like that's not just even, if you're a super rich guy, an extra 100 million if you're worth $5 billion isn't, it's not life. It's not going to kill you. But every $1 billion is 10 100 millions. Like that's a lot of fucking cash. I wonder what the biggest single check he sent or wire transfer in the building of that. Was it just like a 100 million for materials, or was it just like 17 million after 15 million after 7 million? Just boom, 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 boom. Labor costs, boom, boom. And it's just cha-ching, cha-ching, because you're like, oh, it's not that crazy. And you just look at the line items like, oh my God. You think it's probably more likely to be like that. Just relentless,
Do you ask for a discount? Like, hey, I know we owe you $150 million. If I pay in a lump sum, can I make it 125? They're like, no, we want the other 25. Like, what discount do you get for lump sum when you're writing a check for 150? I
don't think you get much. Down payment for the video screen was $100 million. Who knows if that's true, but that'd be incredible. The video screen alone would have been clearly because I was thinking about, I was watching just some of the highlights or watching the game back a couple days ago. The wiring. Can you imagine how complicated that is? The wiring, the HD, when you just plug in a TV and you're like, where do I put the HDMI cord? Like, where does this thing go? Imagine setting that whole thing up. Who runs the channels? Like, is there some guy in a room in a board?
Yeah.
That's
definitely. But that just cabling all of that is...
Honestly, that's believable. The whole setup. Honestly, that might be low. That could be a $500 million project.
We said down payment.
Yeah. Wouldn't shock me if that was a $500 million thing by itself. When you factor in the labor, the wiring, who's running the cable back to the guy?
It's a custom-made system, right?
Is there a chance that guy is not in the stadium? He's outside of it in a room?
Probably underneath. And I bet all their board show stuff is actually usually underneath. Sometimes underneath. Sometimes it's up on like the suite level where they do all the like the PA person is. But it wouldn't shock me if the board, like all the video stuff, is downstairs.
I didn't see a wire anywhere. They did a great job.
Kroenke and his wife are both loaded. My old firm in SF was the architect on SoFi. Yes, the Walton family. I mean, Kroenke's one of the largest landowners in America, and then you've got the Walton family from Walmart. It's quite a marriage.
What do you say? He owns a team in basically every league. He owns a hockey team. He owns an NBA team. He owns. Is it Manchester United, or he owns one of the, not just like, just a little soccer team. No, it's whatever not. Leeds is. It's one of the big ones, right? Barcelona.
Yeah,
Madrid.
They call him Silent Stan.
I thought he has like one of the premier.
Chelsea, maybe.
Might be it. What are because the
Arsenal,
Tampa Bay owners.
Arsenal. Thank you. Arsenal.
When I say I'm not a big soccer guy, but like when you hear Arsenal, do you think one of the big boys?
Yes, I know enough to know.
Yeah, like I feel like Glazers own one of the big boys too. Now who knows? Leeds is fucking. They're in the show now. As I was told when Leeds was the initial investment, think of it like the Raiders. They're a sleeping giant. I just feel like they've jumped past, right? Because someone got relegated and they went in.
Yeah, or I think, what is it? The three bottom and the top three.
That's got to be.
We're not here for the soccer breakdowns, but
can you imagine that feeling when you get relegated, but when you're on the opposite side, you're like, let's go, baby.
Man U for the Glazers.
Do you think that would ever work in pro sports here, or just I think we've talked about this. Why would anyone at this point agree to like get booted?
Yeah, it is such a deep part of the sport, right? From before soccer was a money making sport. It wasn't about like the towns owned the teams. It wasn't about making money. And what an incredible thing to have hanging over your head.
Do you think if the Jags got relegated to the USFL, for sure they would win every game?
Who's coaching them?
Left is that official? Leftwich? I've seen that buzz.
Was that even real, or was that fake?
I can't tell. I mean, I don't know. But I've seen enough buzz that it feels. But then I think I saw something yesterday like they're nowhere near making a decision. Like, has a coach been hired, guy?
I'm telling you, I think the league told everybody, and this would actually be smart. Slow down. First of all, just for the news cycle, what if the league was like, no one gets hired till after the Super Bowl, and then only one team a week could make a hire? It'd be like, it's 2 more months of hirings,
or just one team every 48 hours or something. One team a week would take a little while because there's 9 of them.
Yeah, 2 months. Let's go.
If Dennis Allen gets elevated and they don't make it official for a month, something's up.
Something is up.
It feels up for sure.
Yeah.
Where are these guys getting hired? Like,
yes, the Jags would win. The Jags beat the Bills this year.
It was a long time ago.
And the Colts.
Did you see? I don't know. I didn't see Urban's interview, but he said that it was just moving a little fast for him or something.
I just saw your retweet where you said, yeah, we know.
Like, yeah, buddy.
Todd Haley. Yeah, Todd Haley's in the league. Sky Sports. Oh, he's not?
Oh, in the USFL?
Yeah, because didn't he try to sign Antonio? Then he went on, like, Pardon My Take to talk about it.
Todd Haley tried to sign Antonio Brown?
Offered him a contract.
Oh, yeah, because he coached him in Steelers.
Did you see the trailer for Antonio on Real Sports?
Why is he? But he talked to Burleson. Like, what's he? I'm out. I didn't click on it, but I.
Oh my God, it is so worth it. I'm telling you, I almost didn't click on it too.
I hate him.
And then I know. Trust me.
I hate it. I guess.
Trust
I hate
me.
the whole thing.
Trust me. I get it. But then I clicked it, and it's him and his agent sitting like shoulder to shoulder. Like
no, it's his lawyer.
Okay, him and his lawyer sitting shoulder to shoulder, like there's not a studio where they can just sit comfortably in a chair.
Who's talking to him?
Gumble to Gumble, and he's got his like some hat for some company he's promoting on his head. Smart. I don't know what the company is. And his answers, he's like not there. But I mean, it's incredible. I'm telling you, it is really good. It's not like the other interviews he's done.
He said his mental health's fine, right?
Well, yeah, he was saying like these idiots tried to pay me $200,000 to go into the crazy house so they could look like they were taking care of me.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, what if I don't need to go? And they're just going to use me to make themselves look good, but also get rid of me and make it clear that like I'm not fit to compete. So maybe they'd have to, I don't know.
Well, the one thing I saw him say to Burleson, he was mad that they cut him while he was on the podium, like after the game. Antonio, you ran off the fucking field and did jumping jacks in the end zone.
Look, here's the problem right now. Between everything that we argue about, not everything, a lot of things, like Barry Bonds as an example, not getting into the Hall of Fame. I would put Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. I think Barry competed in the steroid era. Everybody, I'm not going to say everybody was using, but it was very widespread. It was basically no baseball didn't try to stop it. The commissioner
didn't Poppy come up on the original list when they did
Poppy
the test?
Tested positive.
Yeah.
The commissioner who was in charge of baseball at the time is in the Hall of Fame. So I think there's a lot of really logical arguments. But like this idea, people get like indignant when a guy doesn't get voted in. Well, he did cheat. So I think you kind of lose the right to be indignant. Again, I would put him in, but what happens is we have these logical arguments about emotional situations. And it's never going to quite work.
But I do think you're acting like he did cheat, so it's like, well, but cheaters are getting in left and right. That's part of the problem.
But again, like we can't be shocked where it's like people didn't like him and he cheated, and now it's hard for him to get in the Hall of Fame. But people like Poppy and he's into the Hall of Fame. It's like, well, this is how everybody makes decisions every day about like the people they want to spend time with.
I think the main problem is like the fucking baseball writers get to make these decisions. I think that's bothering people.
I mean, but
because we've seen
it's been
a lot
fine.
Of the media people's true colors, and I think they make a lot of the fans a little uncomfortable because they don't really.
Yeah, I mean, but
fans.
this is what I'm talking about. Is like we take these things and we have one thing represent everything. It's like for the most part, I think the Hall of Fame's gotten it pretty right in the last 100 years, and the people who put people in the Hall of Fame are the baseball writers. So I know they're easy to criticize, but like I think they've gotten it pretty right. Like, if anything, they've put too many people in. If anything, they've opened the door too wide, right?
I did hear a good argument that it can't be argued that he's one of the great true assholes to not just the media, like his teammates. A lot of them hated him. I mean, people despised this human being in and around the game of baseball, separate from the media, which he was an over-the-top asshole to. That Papi was like this really likable guy and won all these World Series. Yet Barry was like equally, better. But like, Papi's one of the greatest clutch hitters of all time. Like, lifted his team up. Shouldn't Barry have won a couple of World Series? It was just like, he kind of was
bad
like this,
at first, remember?
Honestly, he was kind of like this. He's kind of got a Lance Armstrong vibe to him.
Well, his skill overcame the fact that he kind of sucked some air out of the room.
Yeah, and I loved watching Barry Bonds, but like we got to admit, like I remember hearing stories because one of our good buddies was like, I don't know if like deep cousins with Marvin Bernard or something, and and Marvin and Barry I think were cool, but it was just telling stories about all the other guys. It was a bizarre. It was not normal. I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. And I think football players fall under this. Baseball players definitely do. And I think some basketball players that just were born in like the 60s and 70s were legit assholes. Like, I don't think assholes really exist anymore. People are just like immature and selfish and self-absorbed. But like, people were legitimately mean. Like, just dealing with a 30-year-old in like 1986. Like, just a true dick. I think you're less likely to find just a true mean asshole now. You'll just feel like, this guy's kind of... It's just the people are just different now. And that's humans change over time. I think Barry was from a generation of just a lot more true dicks. Times were tougher. I mean, it was
time
different.
wasn't tougher for him. Like, he just grew up in the spotlight, I think, and very jaded towards... Right? I mean, he was Bobby Bonds' son. And
His dad was a raging alcoholic.
And part of it was he didn't like the way his dad was treated, right? And he was Willie Mays'
Grandson. It feels like he always acts as the grandson, but it makes more sense as the godson.
Yeah. Again, I think he should be in, but I understand why everyone doesn't agree on it. Like, I do. That's my point.
Well,
I get the emotionality of it.
I think it does have some.
Like, you can't be like, Bobby should be in, he should be in. I agree, but I also understand why they're not getting treated the same.
Wouldn't you say there are some parallels with Terrell Owens? Everyone hated Terrell Owens. But Terrell Owens, if you watched him, for like a 10-year period, was just like, is this guy human? Like, how do you stop this?
Yeah.
Now, there weren't necessarily steroid allegations, but clearly, he didn't get in for several years because people fucking hated him. And the argument was like, well, every team he was on, they couldn't stand the guy, kicked him out immediately.
Well, do you remember his speech?
Well, did he do it? I know. Well, do you think, here's a good example. Well, back to Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown has one of the greatest 6-year stretches in the history of the league, any position. And it's easier to quantify a wide receiver. Is Antonio Brown getting in the Hall of Fame? Because I'll tell you right now, if the group of voters are voting, he ain't getting in. Right? And I to me, I would get that. Like, if I was on the voting committee, I'd be like, do I feel comfortable putting Antonio Brown in the Hall of Fame? He's like a Hall of Fame talent, but should he be sitting next to like Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice? I don't know. I don't know. It's not an easy answer.
I mean, the short answer is yeah.
But see, even someone like him, to me, like, let's say the media says no. I think if you polled just 500 NFL fans, they might say no too. Like, with a guy like that.
What would Mike Tomlin say?
That's a hell of a question.
Big Ben.
Probably no.
What would guys who coached against him say? Maybe something different.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But not everyone. Like, I was listening to some of Kyle today, and he was just talking about like Debo's one of the most respectful players he's ever coached. And I actually think that the majority, I always hate when, a guy gets arrested and be like, look at these idiots in the NFL. It's like, well, on the ratio of society, the NFL runs circles around fucking society in terms of arrests and guys in trouble. And it's clearly gotten a lot better over the years. They did have a moment in probably when we were in college, it felt like guys were getting arrested at a pretty high rate. they had to clean it up, and that's when Roger took the hammer, and then he kind of overcompensated. But I'd think now it's it's just filled with high level guys. But Kyle was saying, Debo, he's like, he is not. People act like that. That thing went viral. He wasn't saying feed me the rock. He said, Kyle, I got you. And he's like, well, he says, I got you. I'll give him the ball. But he's not demanding the ball. If I ask him to block, he'll block. And, I think ideally the Hall of Fame, feels much more comfortable with those type players. He just did whatever it took to win, right? Any guy would want to coach him. Parcells, even Belichick would be like, he might not always listen to the meetings, but I've never coached a guy. Whenever he goes on these rants when someone's like, people compared Khalil Mack to Lawrence Taylor, and Belichick would be like, pump the brakes, and then he'll go on a 10-minute rant about Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
And it's there are clearly some guys, and this always bothers me about the Hall of Fame, in any Hall of Fame, whether it's fucking broadcast, Al Michaels, or, if it's players, you think Michael Jordan or Jerry Rice. Did I disappear?
You did, but I think I'm getting your point. Keep going.
I just think it's the best of the best. No questions asked. And the Barry thing is complicated because of the steroids, but it always bothers me in the NFL. When I think the NFL Hall of Famer, I just close my eyes and think Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Not Andre Reed. It's Raider fans get mad at me. Tim Brown, Tony Dungy, John Lynch. Those guys are fucking awesome. You'd want them on your team. But to me, there's you have to be so good, but it's not necessarily that anymore. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with putting John Lynch in the Hall of Fame, but it's it just opens the door. And baseball's done it a little too. Probably a little less than football. We still live? People see me? We frozen? Haberman? Haberman there? Is he gone? I don't know. Where are we at? He gone. Can you guys see me? We lost Guy. Coward would say, talk about Major League Baseball and watch your ratings drop, for sure. I don't even watch that much baseball anymore. I would probably say the same thing about basketball as well now. Football has just dwarfed everything.
Point.
Yes.
Did I go away or did you go away?
You went away.
I was gone. You were there the whole time?
I mean, I could see myself, but then you froze, and then you disappeared, and now you're back.
It's unacceptable. I'd like to become king of the internet. So let me add this here. Will you guys do a list of top 10 quarterbacks?
Mahomes, Josh Allen, Mahomes.
Trey Lance. Wrong thing.
I saw an incredible tweet the other day. It's I forget who it was, but it was someone that just posted a picture of Josh Allen, and it was are people in Buffalo really just supposed to report to work on Monday like nothing just happened yesterday? It was should everyone in the city of Buffalo just should they have given everyone Monday off?
It's a great question.
Let's just take a deep breath, everybody. That'd been a hard one to shake.
Just a recovery day.
It just, how do you shake that one? You see I saw a quote from Sean McDermott that's he's watched it over and over and over. The end. I don't know if I'd do that, buddy.
Really?
What else are you doing? I mean, you got all the time in your hands. I don't want to go to senior ball. I was planning on coaching. Because there had to be a moment. I don't care. You're not human. If you look up 13 seconds and you're thinking, we're going to host the Bengals or we're going to fucking go to the Super Bowl. But then again, that's just the way my mind thinks. I get a bogey. I'm thinking I'm birdieing the next 4 holes.
One step ahead.
About your next shot.
We got to talk about this resume, John. Kwesi Adolfo Mensah, Somebody tweeted at me today, told me Kwesi means born on Sunday.
I saw that you quoted the tweet and said, "Is this serious?" You can never believe the internet.
No.
Did you look it up? Haberman keeps disappearing on me. Haberman, we're having some internet issues.
I could hear you the whole time. God, I hate the internet. Fuck this. In the amount of time I was gone, the Chiefs beat the Bills. Kyle Shanahan tree, not really Parag Marate tree. Niners, after he was the director, associate portfolio manager at Taylor Mason Cap, then the VP executive director of commodities at, this was the company you were talking about, right? Credit
Suisse. Credit Suisse.
American based? Swiss?
Yeah, I mean Bobby, our buddy, worked at it in San Francisco. I just think they're a major, like, you know, I think they're the type bank that just does deals. They're not like you and me would have our mortgage or our checking account there. I think they just exist to fund VCs that buy hotels and deals and just money moving.
JP Morgan Chase.
That's a normal bank.
Morgan Stanley, fixed income and commodities analyst.
Who's your mortgage through, like a random one or like a normal bank?
First Republic.
Mine's like West Point or something I've never heard of. There's so many bloodsuckers out there.
I think there's a million. I think there's a million. I mean, that is one hell of a resume.
I think we know who his coach is going to be.
You think so?
I think there's a decent chance because he's
D'Amico?
already interviewed there. He's interviewing again. Yeah, what if D'Amico takes Mike McDaniel? I'm pretty sure the rule is you can't block a guy if he's going to call plays and he's not calling plays.
So even though he's technically the OC, what if he's like, I don't call plays, and Kyle's like, arbitrator, he calls plays. You have no evidence that he doesn't call the plays.
I think they changed that rule within the last couple of years.
Do you have to call a certain percentage of plays?
Because remember, LaFleur got blocked. Now, he got blocked because he wasn't going to call plays. Like, you can't steal me. You can't steal Mike McDaniel to be a quote-unquote OC that's not calling plays.
Right.
But you can take Mike McDaniel because they took LaFleur last year to call plays.
Maybe Kyle wanted him gone.
I think Mike McDaniel package deal, Kyle's going to be pissed.
You'd hate to. I mean, Mike's going to get Kirk Cousins. Mike will be living Kyle's dream just beyond his reach.
Do you know what I thought when this guy, Kwesi, was hired? 49er connection, Kirk Cousins will be a Niner again.
On a trade?
At least it's on the table. I don't know. I mean, why? Who knows?
You're saying that Kwesi would trade Kirk to the Niners?
I'm not saying next year. I'm just saying just keep an eye on it. There's a connection. If they want to get him, there's a direct connection.
That's true. Kind of the way the Rams did the Stafford deal where the Rams sent Stafford to their guy.
I don't know why Kyle would want him at this point, but you just to just keep in the back of your mind.
I mean, I have no idea why he would want him at this point, but things happen, right? Knock it if you're with me. Somebody gets hurt. You got to get through the rest of the season. Something. I don't know. I hope it never comes to that, John.
I feel like Kwesi had to take a step back money-wise at those banks because I think Bobby's been making huge cash since he was like 25. So you start working the NFL, maybe it was like an entry-level job, like $80,000, but when you're really smart, you just rise really fast, and now you're a GM making $5 million.
Also, you do it because you've spent 03 to 11, okay? So we had 8 years to make money. By what year is he making mid six figures at one of these companies?
Oh yeah, the banks. Well,
I
would imagine starting salary might have been $100,000 in 03.
I mean, if he wanted, he probably could have taken a 7-year sabbatical, but he decided to work in football instead. And look at this.
I didn't read. Did you know that? Had you ever heard of him? For me, I wasn't super locked in. I didn't know he worked for the Niners.
No, I was not familiar with him other than like probably in the last week or so, you start reading stuff and Googling and you're like, oh, this guy was a Niner.
But I mean, not just a Niner. He was there from 13 to 19. He was there that's a long time.
7 years. 7 years. And one of the people in the Niners building I texted said, who spoke with him a lot, said, I mean, shocker. Then I started reading his resume, but he's just like, A, great dude, and B, ridiculously smart.
You read the quotes from Andrew Berry, the Ivy League GM for the Browns, was like,
No.
He was like, my first hire, I immediately had to get him. How would they even know each other? Just smart people just interact, you know? It's like Andrew Berry had worked for the Colts
Sloan
and the
Sports
Eagles.
Conference.
This guy had worked for the Niners, and smart people just gravitate, you know? It's not like I needed him to be my grunt, you know, pounding the pavement, grinding the bushes on the road in his Honda. He's not looking for those types, you know? They're looking for intellects. They can find the little grunts. But one thing I read is like they're going to keep their whole scouting staff, and he's just going to run it. Maybe they have a really good scouting staff.
I mean, I did feel like Spielman had a pretty good operation, right? Pretty buttoned-down operation running with Minnesota. I think that's a hell of a landing spot if you're D'Amico and if you're Mike McDaniel. Most first-time coaches do not get that level of organization that's had this level of success, right? I think what was the Vikings record this year?
Probably 7-10, maybe 8-9.
That's a damn good record for a team that just fired its coach, right?
Yeah,
that's
they were not. They could have been 9-8 pretty easily, right? They lost some pretty heart-wrenching games. Like they have pretty talented.
Kirk
team.
Isn't a superstar, but he's also, you can go to the playoffs with him in year one. Because I thought Sean Payton said something really interesting in his press conference on Tuesday, which was it was such a big deal for them to just kind of hit some picks, get some good coaches, win some games right away. And maybe we talked about this on the podcast too, but I think year one, year two, if you're a head coach and you can just kind of get yourself to momentum to that second contract and get people off your back, second guessing everything you do. And the next thing you know, people don't jump down your throat when you miss on a draft pick or you try to plug a player into a wrong spot or you overpay a free agent or you go for it on a fourth down and fail. Like when you build up that equity, I mean, you just have a better chance to succeed right now if you become the head coach of the Vikings than if you become the head coach of the Jets or the Giants or the Jags.
They went 8-9, and they started 1-3.
Wow. So very easily could have been over 500. I mean, Justin Jefferson,
Thielen. They lost to the Browns 14-7. They lost to the Cowboys 20-16. They lost to the Ravens in overtime. They lost to the Lions 29-27 on that game winner from Goff. Remember that won the Lions their first game.
Yeah.
They lost to the Rams 30-23. I mean, they were in a shitload of games. They are not your typical Jags, or even the Bears sucked. You're right. I mean, that's not a terrible. Like, you could be like, why couldn't we be a 7 seed next year, right?
Where was their? I mean, predominantly they've had problems on defense the last 2 years, right?
O-line sucks, and their defense.
Their secondary, their secondary's been bad.
Secondary's been terrible, and they just have a lot of aging, expensive players. Kendricks, Barr. I mean, these guys were like stars. A lot of those guys when I was at Fresno State were like blue chip recruits in like 2008. Remember Kendricks was Hoover High School. Remember him and Michael were pretty big deals coming out of Hoover High School. Yeah. Michael went to Cal. He went to UCLA. Anthony Barr was a UCLA guy, star player, I think, at Loyola High School in Southern California. I vividly remember those two guys in high school, and they've gone on to, I would imagine, make a combined $180 million, the two of them. Harrison Smith, safety, old. Their defensive line got old. Remember, like, 4 or 5 years ago, that was probably one of the best defenses in the league. Mike Zimmer running it, just kicking ass. The game that they lost, or did they win? What team did Blair Walsh kick for? Was he Minnesota?
Vikings? Yeah.
He missed it for Minnesota in a freezing cold game where Bud Grant came out sleeveless. Because I heard Randy Cross on the radio within the last couple of weeks. He's like talking about when Randy Cross was on the Niners before Bill Walsh showed up. He was drafted like 76 or 77. And he's like, when he used to play the Minnesota Vikings, Bud Grant, it made me think of when he went out to do the coin flip with his shirt off. He's like, one of Bud Grant's things, Bud Grant was like Pat Hill times 100. No heaters on the sideline. Like, that was his thing. And he's like, you would play some of these games because they were talking about leading into Lambeau cold games. Like the Minnesota games back in the day were just freezing. You know, those purple people eaters. And it was just, and clearly were we talking about this? About the cold in like Lambeau compared to Kansas City? And maybe you're right. It's just the north you go, right? Minnesota and Green Bay are dramatically colder than like And I would say Chicago, too, can be freezing. Chicago, Lambeau, and Minnesota relative to, like, KC. Or even, like, Philly and New York. Like, it doesn't feel like those ever get 0 in a playoff game. It might be 30, but it's not whatever the hell's going on in Minnesota and Lambeau. I mean, what we just witnessed at Lambeau, holy moly. Did you see the video of the – have you seen the videos that, like, the Giants and Bears are taken out of, like, the guys getting out of their car?
I saw the Ryan Poles one with it's like 4 a.m. and you can see his breath and he's here for work. Yeah.
Did you listen to how cold when he walked? Like he was walking on ice. Do you see the jacket he was wearing? I mean, he was wearing like 7 layers. $120,000 Mercedes.
That was his car?
Well, I mean,
team gives a car.
Yeah, you would have to imagine like the Mercedes dealer that does, business with the team.
Vic Tafur reported the Raiders are losing interest in Josh McDaniels. Interesting phrasing there, right? I think that's let me see if I can pull up the report because I'd like to actually see exactly what Vic said or wrote. Because I would imagine Tafur, Josh McDaniels is not the favorite for the Raiders job anymore. The latest on the GM search. So Vic writes this. All right, let's see. There was strong buzz Tuesday morning around a Patriots duo of Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels coming to Vegas. But 24 hours later, it seems to have been quickly muted. Ziegler is the Patriots pro personnel director and de facto general manager under Bill Belichick. Meanwhile, Gerard Mayo interviewed for the Raiders job on Tuesday. McDaniels apparently has been calling coaches around the league to put together a staff, but it appears something happened in the last but trust me, I'm a subscriber. Wrong browser.
I skimmed it before we hopped on. There wasn't like sources say this was a fall. It was just kind of basic stuff. Like they're just going in a different direction. Maybe he was kind of feels like Mark is just trying to learn, like just gain information. Like he's not hiring any of these guys. Like if he ultimately hires Jim, he was just interviewing guys to get some intel, right? What do people think of my guy? Maybe it's like, what do you think of my quarterback? Do I want to pay this guy $150 million?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I get that gut feeling that Mark is the guy who's already paid him and has watched every game live. So why wouldn't he have, like, are we really going to give this guy a third contract? I do understand where he's coming from. He's 30 years old. We just saw the playoffs. Like, is Derek good enough to beat these guys? I'm not saying he's on the right day, yeah, but, like, could you win multiple playoff games with him? Or is he like, kind of a better Kirk Cousins, which I think that's kind of what he is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Someone would gladly pay him, but I think it's fair to say at this point there's probably a ceiling with Derek as your quarterback. And now, if your team's good enough, you can win 10, 11 games and get into a playoff game and take your shot. I think if his defense was better, he'd probably have a chance to win a playoff game, but could I see him win 3 playoff games in the AFC? I could not.
But let's talk about Josh McDaniels. So, we've seen Josh take a job, we thought, and then not take that job, right? The Colts job. And I saw the joke today was if Eberflus and who was the other coach that he hired but they didn't take the job, both get jobs, are they part of Josh McDaniels' tree?
It's the Eagles guy. Gannon was the DB coach.
So would Josh take the job? Would Mark Davis offer him the job? I know Patriots people have failed many times before, but can you really say if you're Mark Davis? I know Patriots people have failed before, John, but can you really say if you're Mark Davis, I can't go down the Patriots road if you have a Patriots GM and a Patriots head coach sitting right there based on the failures of other Patriots people before? I don't think based on that, you say, I'm not hiring Josh McDaniels, right? I still think, and you still think, I think you think, that Jim Harbaugh is the end game for them. But I also wonder if part of this is, if we go back to what I said earlier, which is Jim doesn't know what he's going to do. If Jim doesn't know what he's going to do, then if you're Mark, you've got to have some other considerations here.
Yeah, you got to have some contingency plans. Feels like they have those. They're interviewing GMs and they're interviewing D'Amico and Todd Bowles. Like they go in a number of different directions.
Maybe he just found out from Jim that Jim is interested.
Maybe he found out Jim might not come. He said, listen, I need to think about this. Well, if someone says, I need to think about this, what if he says no? You got to do something else.
Yeah, but I'm saying now that Josh McDaniels has, quote-unquote, the Raiders have lost interest in Josh McDaniels. That's the part I'm talking about.
Oh, Jim's saying like, yeah, show me an offer and then we'll talk.
Right. And so then Josh has to pull out before somebody else gets hired over him, or someone else is going to get hired over him that's not Jim, and Josh has to, everyone's got to maneuver so nobody looks bad, which is the whole thing.
Do you expect if Jim Harbaugh's hired, the contract to look like Gruden or no?
Yes.
10-year, $100 million deal?
Nah, maybe not 10, but again, I think what would Michigan's offer look like?
Well, all these guys are getting 7-8 year deals, right?
Like he's not, you said it the other day, and you're right. Harbaugh can't take less than Tucker just took at Michigan State, Mel Tucker.
So you wouldn't be shocked if it's like the report 7 for 70 or something.
Yeah, or like 7 for 77. What was Jim making as the Niners head coach?
Remember, it was like 5 and wanted a big raise.
Okay, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah. And then he got 9 at Michigan 2 years ago.
So was he going to go to the Raiders for 9? No. Go for 10? Okay, but not for 100, not for 10 years.
No state income tax?
Yeah, but I just think you...
No, I know. But I mean,
what do you think would be?
I honestly no clue. I mean,
yeah,
I would imagine if I'm Mark, I'm not too comfortable doing another 10-year deal.
Maybe you do 6. 6 for 75 or something.
Yeah, something like that. 6 is a long contract.
Yes,
6
it is.
I mean, you sign a 6-year deal January 26, 2022. We're talking till 2028. That's a fucking long time to go. Who knows what we're going to be doing in 2028? Hopefully be alive. I mean, it's a long way to go. That's when Gruden's contract, I guess Gruden's contract would have ended in 17. But he was trending in the wrong direction.
Wait, 17?
Well, didn't he sign in 17, so it would end in 27?
Oh, 27.
I said 27, yeah, sorry. 17, 18, 19, 20.
But it
Maybe,
wouldn't.
Maybe it was 18. Maybe it was 18.
He would have been fired, or he might have signed an extension. Can you imagine if he was going to get an extension?
That is the good thing with a 10-year deal. You don't even need to talk extension to like year 6.
Yeah, but the bad thing is the coach has doesn't answer for anything.
No, if it goes wrong, you're fucked. That's why I would do the 10 years for McVay and Kyle. I'd feel pretty good about doing that right now.
Yeah, and no, it's
you lock them in at the number, right?
That's right. I asked
because what if a coach in like 10 years is making $28 million? You got these guys on $12 million contracts. You're saving, $14 million a year, $18 million a year, whatever. Who knows? It's not. It feels like coaches' contracts are kind of like real estate. It's not like when we were kids. I remember Holmgren got like $3 million. It's only gone up. It hasn't remember when they were making 10, now they're making $800,000 head coaches. That ain't the case. Especially when 38 million people are watching these games. No wonder baseball managers and basketball coaches are going the other way. Less people are watching. And football is the only sport where people keep watching.
Well, is it going to go the other way for coaches?
Not for good head coaches.
You wouldn't think, right? The sport is different than the other sports, but what's happening right now in the NFL is what has already happened from a GM standpoint in baseball and basketball. The type of coach you hire,
I'd say the difference though is your football coach has way more influence on a weekly basis than those guys, and for the most part, a large percentage of them are kind of, even though you have a team president, the CEO of your franchise is your head coach, and you have a 5, every single owner, the poorest owners are all billionaires. I mean, we all see when these go viral of like the CEOs, how much they make in the top 500, Fortune 500 of these companies. Like, guy, they make an astronaut. I mean, you're talking 50, 60, 70 million dollars. So paying a guy, you could argue paying a guy that's having success. Like if the Niners are paying Kyle Shanahan $10 million, it's the easiest $10 million they'll ever spend, right? Or same with Sean McVay.
Yeah. Yes. But I don't think their salaries are going to go down. But as we've seen, right, baseball manager salaries have gone down. You're right. There's a fundamental difference. A football coach calls every single play is dictated by the coach has their hand on the controller for every play, both sides of the ball.
Because at any moment he could say, do something different, right? Even if he's not the play caller.
Yeah, but the coaches that get paid the most are the guys that have total control of the organization because those are the guys that have the most leverage. Actually, it's kind of the reverse. They get total control of the organization, and they have the most leverage, so they also make the most money. But the more GMs, if more and more GMs get hired that maybe feel like they can dictate some terms based on the analytics, a GM is not hiring Josh McDaniels. A GM is not hiring Kyle Shanahan. A GM did hire Sean McVay. It turned
We'll
out,
see.
but
None of these coaches have been hired yet.
no, it's true. But a GM's not hiring Sean Payton. Sean Payton's not taking a job with a GM.
But I'll say this: Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan weren't Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan when they were hired.
Well,
as you
no,
win,
but,
you grow.
No, right. There can come a day where Sean McVay has more power in his own organization. But Kyle was, in that Kyle has total power, football operations. McVay does not, right?
Well, I think he's gained more juice, but yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right. I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
Is D'Amico going to get $9 million? No.
No. But he might get 6.
You're right. The general pool is still going up. I'm just spitballing. But I do think you can always save money.
True, but here's the thing with coaches. Okay, let's just say you can get D'Amico. You can sign him to a 4-year, $20 million deal, right? So $5 million a year. By year 2, he's made the playoffs back-to-back years and won 2 playoff games. Won the wild card round both times, and one of those games was a home playoff game. He would be viewed immediately like, this is the Kyle McVay of defense right there with Vrabel. He's immediately a $10 million coach. That's just,
whereas GMs in baseball go, I can do it again with somebody else.
Yeah, and that's not the way it works in football, right?
Yeah.
The moment Doug Peterson won that Super Bowl, Jeffrey Lurie gave him like $9 million a year. And he fired him 2 years later, and Doug's like, oh, shit, I'll go build a house in Jupiter. I'll wait. It's crazy. It doesn't feel like Doug's going to get a job.
Is he interviewing? Or did he just interview first and now everyone else is interviewing?
I don't know.
Any second interviews?
Is he going to have to be an OC? Is that crazy? Like if you're like D'Amico, a guy like Doug, you would think. I mean, he's been an OC of a Super Bowl team. Well, Billy O didn't get a job, so he's stuck.
Saban will get him a job by next year.
And then Doug goes there.
But which job is Saban? What's Billy O gonna? Who's hiring Billy O?
Why wouldn't Doug be able to take an NFL? Why wouldn't one of these people be able to hire Doug as their offensive coordinator in the NFL?
No, I know. I'm just saying, would Doug rather be Saban's OC than, I don't know,
would you rather
Jonathan Gannon's OC?
Would you rather just go to the combine or go to Arch's high school basketball game?
Yeah, you'd rather go to the combine. I just wonder if, I don't know. I don't think Doug needs like the Saban magic touch, but
deep down, do you think Billy O
does not want to be there?
There's part of him that's like, I can't believe I'm at fucking Arch Manning's high school basketball game.
Yes, I don't want to be here. Now he did go to Penn State, right? It's not like this is his first college job.
Coached, I think he was an offensive coordinator before Belichick hired him at Duke. Like I
knew he
was
was
coached in college. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like you are at Arch Manning's high school basketball game. Like at least you don't have to go to like, we're at this guy who's probably not even a Power 5 guy, but we might end up with him. You are at Arch Manning's. Like it's a big deal, right? I just can't get over how big Arch is. He fucking looks like a load.
I know. How tall is he? What did we say? Like 6'4"?
I think it's debatable. I don't know.
Trent Williams didn't practice. Where's the Niner injury list here? Any concern?
Elijah Mitchell didn't practice.
Mitchell
didn't Kyle said
Ambry's back.
He said he's going to play. Trent thinks he's going to play too. I wouldn't worry much about that. The Elijah Mitchell thing is, I wonder if he came from a smaller school, and Kyle has run him like he's Walter Payton meets Earl Campbell this year. And that game yesterday or a couple nights ago had to feel like, the guy was from Louisiana Lafayette. I can't imagine Louisiana Lafayette played many games that went under 35 degrees in his career. I don't know where he's from. My guess would be the South. Would be like Florida or Texas. Like that is just
Louisiana.
He has become a really good player really fast on a team that's played. Think how many games he's played. And
remember he was never the feature back at Louisiana Lafayette or Louisiana.
He got to mix in with those guys. So
yeah.
I feel like he's just, and I don't blame him. He's got to feel exhausted.
Let's compare.
When you're like trying to be bold and it's a hilly course, you're like, I'll walk. And then by about hole 16, you're like, oh my God, I can't just wait to be done with 18. That kind of feels like that's what it felt like watching him against the Packers. It's like, I don't know how much more juice this guy has this year.
I thought maybe it was the cold. I did think early in the game he didn't look the same, but I'll give him credit. He just kept on keeping on, right?
Well, I think that's why they respect him. They like him. I mean, I'm impressed. They need to get him some help, guy. Hey, Trey Sermon, did you learn anything at Oklahoma or Ohio State? Third rounder? Can we get some reps, or what are we doing there? Jeff Wilson's done.
So he had 198 rushing attempts in 2019 at Louisiana. 141. So he was 146, 198, 141 his last 3 years of college. That's a fair amount of carries. But he's 207, and NFL carries are different than they are in the Sun Belt.
What would you say the equivalent of the Kyle carries are to the Sun Belt? 700?
2 for 1. Yeah, 3 for 1.
Guy, he runs.
Not to mention blitz pickups, all that kind of stuff, right? Blocking.
They are really going to need. Do you think they're going to sign a running back this offseason? Just like a role player? Because I bet they're not just like, oh, yeah, Trey Sermon will just mix in next year. Why would they think that?
I don't think they think that.
It feels like he'll just have I'm just going to throw it in like Mike Davis or, you just put it in a running back.
Raheem Mostert back?
Can you count on that?
No. Somebody just tagged us in this post here. Kelly Stafford, just went on Ticketmaster and saw how expensive tickets are getting. I'm going to buy a good amount and give them away. If you're a hardcore Rams fan or just a regular Rams fan, a veteran, active in the military, a public servant, email me at staffgiveback@gmail.com and tell me your story with some photos attached. I'll get back to y'all by tomorrow night.
Is there a possibility that Stan gave her like $50,000 to go buy? How many tickets would that even get you now? Thinking in my head.
4.
2. Yeah. You'd actually need. Now he makes a lot. They have
the
Stafford family has some cash.
I mean, I'm not encouraging. I got no problem.
I give her credit.
Yes, I got no problem with what she said. I got no problem with any of it. But I do know somebody is dressing up in a Rams beanie and sending her a photo that is not a Rams fan.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's doing the right. Are people making fun of her?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. It's of course somebody somewhere is, but I don't. No, she's not getting. Whatever. I think it's fine. I really do respect the grassroots blue collar effort to get some fans in there that are your fans.
For sure.
I really do. You could do the thing, the one that always killed me was the owner of the Diamondbacks, I think, would always kick out fans. You are not allowed to sit behind home plate in the other team's gear. They will kick you out of your seats. They will tell you either take it off or leave the seats. Because, you can see them right there in the background.
Does that exist a lot?
I don't think it exists a lot, but I definitely know it's happened with the Diamondbacks several years ago. Or Elaine Bennis in Seinfeld, where she's wearing an Orioles hat, but she's sitting in the owner's box.
I forgot. It was with George.
With George and Kramer, I think, at a Yankee game, and they're like, "Hey, we'd love you to take the Orioles hat off." And she's like, "Yeah, okay." They're like, "No, really, George would like you to take the hat off." Steinbrenner. She's like, "I'm not taking the hat off."
When did Steinbrenner hire George? About what season?
This was not even related to George. It was somebody's Jerry's girlfriend's dad works for the Yankees and gave tickets. I couldn't tell you Seinfeld seasons because I never watched them in order. I'm all over the place,
Gotcha. I want to get when George gets hired by the Yankees. I need to get to that season.
I don't even remember him. I don't remember a specific episode where he got hired. I mean, there had to have been one, but
I thought he interviews with Steinbrenner, which was definitely Larry David's voice, right?
Oh, there's an episode I watched the other day where there's a dog barking and it's Larry David's voice.
The dog.
You don't ever see the dog. It's just Jerry has this dog he's got to watch. And
from the dude that had the seizure on the plane.
It wasn't a seizure. Yeah, it was like this. Yeah, but he had an issue. An alcoholic had an issue on the plane. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched that episode. That was funny.
That's a good episode. I like those older episodes. Are great.
Season 2 and 3 are pretty special. Like the first.
Are you watching them in order?
Well, yeah, because you just go to Netflix and you just, that's, how you would if you're watching Ozarks or whatever. Mm-hmm. You just kind of, you just operate that way, right? I wouldn't, if they just, put them in queue and threw them all around, you wouldn't notice because most of them, they're all kind of independent of each other, right? There's not necessarily that many running jokes. Now, there is the one where Kramer wants to smell like the ocean, and then he pitches it, and then later on, Jerry shows him, and he freaks, and the guy had stolen his idea.
Yeah. Calvin Klein.
Because he pitches him the idea, and the guy tells him it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard.
He's like, you smell like the beach. It was Calvin Klein.
Genius.
My new favorite bet, says Michael, 49ers money line and an interception by both Stafford and Jimmy. Plus 550.
Stafford, no picks last 2 weeks. And honestly, it doesn't feel like he's even come that close. Feels like it's the best 2 weeks of, given the pressure, probably he's ever played in his life. I felt he's been pretty dialed. That throw he made to Cooper Kupp, he got destroyed by Sue, too. I mean, I do view him a little bit, he's got, these last 2 games, you kind of shake the stink of the Lions off you a little. You got 2 playoff victories for a new team. Like, that's pretty, when Sean's like, hey, man, we got a lot on the line here on you.
Yeah.
It was like, we've done all in on you. We made the Von Miller trade because of you. Like, that's why they made the Von Miller trade, because they're all in on Matt, right? They need to be good. We've already Matt, we're already balls deep. So this was just, we've already spent our $10 million life savings. We just gave $800,000 for Vaughn. Like, you were our huge investment, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
you made us do that.
And he's answered the bell.
I
like him.
Well, we liked him in Detroit, but we get a lot of Lions fans telling us
Pat Stafford.
But I think you and I both liked him, and he is to me an easy guy to root for, and I root for him. I root for his success by and large, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever looked to me scared or anything like that. I mean,
he just throws some terrible balls to the other guy.
Yeah, which one-on-one, is it the craziest thing in the world? Ambry Thomas, Odell Beckham, one-on-one jump ball.
I mean, I'd say one of the most beloved quarterbacks of all time was, known for throwing a lot of picks.
Favre.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where winning the championship is a big deal.
Yeah. Very big deal.
We just put out a video separate of this. As we were starting this stream, we also put out a separate video about the Talanoa Hufanga touchdown, the Willis Hufanga play. What is that play going to get called?
Pick a name. I don't know.
Block? It's usually something kind of basic like that. I know it's not. Scoop and go in the snow.
The high tower.
The high tower. The high tower 1. Maybe we'll have the high tower 2 this week. I don't know.
I wouldn't get too cocky because you watched that the Rams game week 18. The play where Wisnowski got destroyed? That was a pretty sweet play they had dialed up. They had this perfect wall, and he just went, whoop. I'd forgotten about that play. I was like, oh, high tower. Remember, it was a punt return where Wisnowski had to come. And
we got hurt.
The guy
was
taken off down the sideline of they had this special little play all walled off. And I remember sitting on the side, I could see the wall. I'm like, oh, my God, they got something brewing. And then he just takes off. It's like he was high-fiving all of his teammates on the Rams sideline as he was taking off. And then Wisnowski, because when you text me during the game that he had got KO'd, I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
He gets the collision, he's laying there dead. Underrated part about that game is Robbie Gould punted multiple times.
Robbie Gould's been special teams. Robbie Gould's been ready for special teams.
Robbie Gould's been fantastic.
TD at the Tundra.
Snow scoop.
Hightower's Revenge. It's a good one.
Does Hightower deserve to get remembered forever, though?
After that, yes.
Was that him or was that more just Willis? That's what I need to know.
I mean, they had another block in the game.
Oh, I give more credit on that one. This one might have just been I kicked the snapper's ass.
2 blocks in the same game. That hasn't happened in the playoffs since '88.
It's a good stat. You know, it's Hightower keeps that on his. He's going to need to put that on the resume this offseason.
Don't be afraid. You know, I mean, it's.
You think he's getting an extension?
I mean, I don't know.
We'll see how this game goes. Odell takes one to the house. Tunes will change fast.
I know. What are the Rams thinking this week on special teams?
What if they win this game, but Odell takes one to the house, and then next week Tyreek takes one to the house to win it with like 4 minutes left?
No extension.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go on Hightower.
All right. Anything else that we missed?
Podcast tomorrow, and just keep rocking and rolling.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us.